For 5 years, Captain Sarah Mitchell had been the only one to visit Detective Michael Johnson's grave. So when she found a black woman and child there, leaving fresh flowers and family photos, her first instinct was to call security. Until she heard the woman whisper, "I'm sorry, I didn't tell anyone about us, Michael. I'm sorry our son will never know his hero." Father, where are you watching this video from? Don't forget to leave your city in the comments as well. Remember, every comment is a voice. Every voice is a change. The morning mist clung to Riverside Memorial Cemetery like a shroud, dampening the sound of Captain Sarah Mitchell's footsteps as she walked the familiar path to Section 12, Row 7, Grave 23. She'd made this journey every month for 5 years, always alone, always carrying the same burden of guilt and grief that had never quite healed. Detective Michael Bull Johnson's headstone was simple black granite with gold lettering. Detective Michael Anthony Johnson, badge number 4923, died in the line of duty, beloved partner and friend. Sarah had chosen those words herself, along with the Police Benevolent Association and the department brass. They'd honored him as a hero, which he was. They'd mourned him as a brother, which he had been. What they didn't know what Sarah was about to discover was that they'd forgotten the most important part of his story. At 54, Sarah had served 28 years with the Metropolitan Police Department, the last 15 as captain of the 4th Precinct. Michael had been her partner for the first 7 years of his career, before she'd been promoted. Even after she'd moved up in rank, they'd remained close. He'd been her friend, her confidant, the person she'd trusted with her life more times than she could count. The bullet that killed him had been meant for her. As Sarah approached the gravesite, she stopped short. Someone was already there. A young black woman knelt beside Michael's headstone, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. Next to her stood a small boy, maybe 6 years old, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, Michael's favorite flower. Though Sarah had never told anyone that detail, Sarah's first reaction was territorial irritation. This was her sacred space, her private ritual of remembrance. For 5 years, she'd been the only visitor to Michael's grave, the only one who brought flowers, who cleaned the headstone, who spoke to him about cases and memories and the guilt that never quite went away. She started to approach, ready to politely but firmly suggest they visit another grave, when the woman's voice carried across the morning air. "I'm sorry I couldn't tell anyone about us, Michael," the woman whispered, her voice broken with grief. "I'm sorry our son will never know his hero, Father." Sarah froze. "Our son?" The little boy placed his small hand on the headstone, tracing the letters of Michael's name with careful fingers. "Mama, why can't I tell my friends about Daddy? Why is it a secret?" "Because sometimes, baby," the woman replied, wiping tears from her cheeks, "the world isn't ready for certain kinds of love. Your daddy protected us by keeping us safe, even if it meant we had to love him quietly." Sarah felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "Son? Michael had a son?" She studied the boy more carefully, and her breath caught in her throat. The resemblance was unmistakable. The same dark eyes, the same strong jawline, the same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. This child was clearly Michael's son, but that was impossible. Michael had been single when he died. No wife, no girlfriend that anyone knew about. His emergency contacts had been his elderly mother and Sarah herself. His death benefits had gone to his mother, and when she'd passed 2 years later, they'd reverted to the Police Benevolent Association fund. How could he have had a family that no one knew about? Sarah's mind raced through the timeline. The last 3 years of Michael's life, he'd been different, happier, more secretive about his personal time, always checking his phone with a smile she'd never seen before. He'd started volunteering at community centers, something about giving back. Now she understood. He'd been building a life with someone he'd loved enough to protect with secrecy. Sarah remained hidden behind a large oak tree, watching as the woman and child completed what was clearly a well-practiced ritual. The boy arranged the sunflowers in the vase at the base of the headstone, while his mother pulled out a small photo album, showing pictures to Michael's grave as if he could see them. "This is Marcus at his first day of school," she said softly. "He's so smart, Michael, just like you said he would be. He's reading at a 3rd grade level already, and he always wants to help people. Yesterday he gave his lunch to a kid who forgot his." The boy Marcus nodded seriously. "Mama says I got that from you, Daddy. She says you always helped people who needed it." Sarah's throat tightened. That was Michael, all right. Always the first to volunteer for the tough cases. Always bringing groceries to elderly victims. Always. Going the extra mile for community outreach. Tell him about the school play, Marcus urged his mother. The woman smiled through her tears. Marcus is going to be a police officer in the school safety play next month. He's been practicing his lines. He wants to tell everyone that police officers are heroes who protect families. Sarah watched, mesmerized, as this unknown family mourned the man she'd called her best friend. Every detail they shared revealed how little she'd actually known about Michael's private life. The woman reached into her purse and pulled out what looked like bills and official documents. Sarah could see the red past due stamps from her hiding place. I'm trying so hard, Michael, the woman whispered. The rent's 3 months behind, and they're threatening eviction. I'm working 3 jobs, but it's not enough. I know you left money for Marcus's college, but I can't figure out how to access it. The lawyers say there's no record of us anywhere. Sarah's blood ran cold. Michael's death benefits had been substantial, over $200,000 in life insurance, plus his pension contributions and the special fund for officers killed in the line of duty. If he'd had a family, they should have been the primary beneficiaries, but if no one knew about them. Sarah watched as the woman and boy prepared to leave. As they walked away, Marcus turned back to wave at the headstone. Bye, Daddy. I love you. I'm gonna be a police officer just like you when I grow up. After they disappeared from view, Sarah approached the grave slowly, her mind reeling. The fresh sunflowers stood bright against the dark granite, and several photos had been left leaning against the headstone, pictures of Michael with the woman and boy at a park, at what looked like a birthday party, holding the baby that was clearly Marcus. How had Michael managed to keep this secret? And more importantly, how had Sarah failed so completely to know the most important thing about her partner's life? That evening, Sarah sat in her study, surrounded by every case file, personal record, and memory she had of Michael Johnson. She'd called in favors, accessed databases, and reviewed 5 years of documentation. Slowly, the picture began to emerge. The paper trail revealed a heartbreaking truth. Michael had set up a trust fund for his son and tried to change his beneficiaries, but the paperwork had been held up in legal review when he died. Meanwhile, Sarah had automatically received his partner benefits, while his actual family, the woman and child he died protecting, had received nothing. Michael's phone records showed regular calls to a Dr. Keisha Williams, a social worker at the community center where he'd volunteered. Credit card records showed payments for children's items, family restaurants, and gifts that made no sense for a single man. But most damning was what Sarah found in his old locker at the station, a locker that had been cleaned out and reassigned years ago, but whose contents had been stored in evidence. Among his personal effects was an engagement ring and a letter addressed to my beloved Keisha and my son Marcus. The letter, dated just 2 weeks before Michael's death, laid out his plans to propose to Keisha, to officially adopt Marcus, and to go public with their relationship after her promotion at work was confirmed. I've protected you both by keeping us secret, Michael had written, but I'm tired of hiding the best thing that ever happened to me. You and Marcus are my family, my future, my everything. It's time the world knew. Sarah read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Michael had died 2 days before he'd planned to propose. 2 weeks before he was going to reveal the family he'd kept secret to protect them, and in the 5 years since his death, that family had struggled alone while the department honored their fallen hero with plaques and ceremonies, never knowing his real legacy was a woman and child living in poverty. The next morning, Sarah drove to the address she'd found in Michael's personal effects. The apartment complex was run down but clean, the kind of place where hardworking people lived paycheck to paycheck. She found apartment to B and knocked, her heart pounding. The woman who answered the door was clearly the same person from the cemetery, though she looked exhausted. Up close, Sarah could see she was probably in her early 30s, with kind eyes and the bearing of someone who'd been carrying a heavy burden for a long time. Can I help you? Keisha asked cautiously. Dr. Williams, my name is Captain Sarah Mitchell. I was Detective Michael Johnson's partner. Keisha's face went pale. You're Sarah? Michael talked about you all the time. He said you were like his sister. May I come in? We need to talk. Keisha's apartment was small but immaculate, filled with photos of Marcus and a few precious pictures of Michael with them. Sarah could see the care that had gone into making this a home. Despite obvious financial struggles, Marcus appeared from what must have been his bedroom, and Sarah's breath caught again at how much he looked like his father. Mama, who's this lady? Marcus asked, studying Sarah with Michael's intelligent eyes. This is Miss Sarah, baby. She worked with your daddy. Marcus's face lit up. You knew my daddy? Was he really as brave as Mama says? Sarah knelt down to Marcus's eye level, seeing Michael in every feature of the boy's face. Your daddy was the bravest man I ever knew. He saved my life more times than I can count. Mama says we can't tell people about daddy because it might make problems for her at work, but I wish I could tell everyone he was my daddy. Sarah looked up at Keisha, understanding flooding through her. You kept the secret even after he died. Keisha nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Michael was so careful to protect my reputation at the community center. He said if people knew I was dating a cop, some of the families might not trust me. After he died, I didn't know what to do. I had no legal proof of our relationship, no way to claim any benefits. I was afraid if I came forward, people would think I was lying for money. Sarah's arrival at police headquarters the next morning with Michael's secret family created a crisis that reached the highest levels of command. Commissioner Davis found himself facing an impossible situation. How do you honor a fallen hero while admitting the department failed his family for 5 years? The meeting in Commissioner Davis's office was one of the most difficult of Sarah's career. She brought copies of all the evidence, the letter, the photos, the financial records that proved Michael's secret family was real. Commissioner Davis, a man who'd known Michael and respected him, sat in stunned silence as Sarah laid out the facts. You're telling me, he said slowly, that Detective Johnson had a family we never knew about, and they've been struggling in poverty while we've been giving him awards and naming streets after him? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Sarah replied. His son is 6 years old, and he's never received a penny of his father's death benefits. His mother is working 3 jobs and facing eviction. But why didn't she come forward? Why didn't she claim the benefits? Sarah pulled out Michael's letter. Because he protected them so well that they had no legal standing, no marriage certificate, no official adoption papers for Marcus, no documented relationship. Michael died before he could make their family official. The implications were staggering. The department had failed the family of a fallen hero not through malice, but through ignorance of their existence. What do you want me to do? Commissioner Davis asked. I want you to do what Michael would have done, Sarah replied. I want you to take care of his family. Over the following weeks, Sarah became the liaison between the department and Michael's secret family. DNA tests confirmed what everyone could see: Marcus was undoubtedly Michael's son. The Police Benevolent Association voted to award Keisha and Marcus the full death benefits that should have been theirs from the beginning. But for Sarah, the money was only the beginning. Standing at Michael's grave for what would be her last solo visit, Sarah made a promise that would redefine everything she thought she knew about partnership and family. She wasn't just honoring a fallen officer anymore, she was embracing a family that had been hidden but never forgotten. The first time Sarah brought Keisha and Marcus to the police station, officially, as Michael's family, the entire 4th precinct turned out. Officers who had served with Michael lined up to meet his son, to share stories about his father, to welcome them into the police family they should have always been part of. Marcus, wearing a junior police badge that had belonged to his father, walked through the station with wide eyes and a proud smile. My daddy worked here? He asked Sarah, as they toured Michael's old desk. Right here, Sarah confirmed. And he was the best partner I ever had. Captain Rodriguez, who had taken over Sarah's old precinct, knelt down to Marcus's level. Your daddy saved a lot of people, son. He was a real hero. I know, Marcus said seriously. Mama told me. She said he died protecting Miss Sarah. The moment was profound and painful. Here was Michael's son, meeting the woman his father had died to save, in the place where his father had served with honor. 6 months later, Sarah stood at Michael's grave with a new tradition. Instead of visiting alone, she came with Keisha and Marcus. The headstone had been updated to include beloved father and partner, and fresh flowers appeared weekly, not just from Sarah, but from the entire police family that had finally learned about Michael's most precious legacy. Miss Sarah, Arcus said, as they prepared to leave the cemetery. Do you think my daddy would be proud of me? Sarah looked down at the boy who had inherited his father's courage, his kindness, and his sense of justice. Marcus, your daddy would be the proudest father in the world. As they walked back to Sarah's car, she'd insisted on driving them, a weekly ritual that had become precious to all of them. Keisha fell into step beside her. Sarah, I need you to know something, Keisha said quietly. Michael talked about you constantly. He said you were the sister he'd never had, the partner who made him a better cop. He would be so grateful that you're taking care of us. Sarah smiled, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced since Michael's death. Keisha, I failed him once by not knowing about you and Marcus. I won't fail him again. You're family now." That evening, as Sarah reviewed Marcus's homework at her kitchen table, another new tradition, she reflected on how much her life had changed. She thought she was honoring Michael's memory by visiting his grave alone, by carrying the guilt of his sacrifice and solitude, but she'd been wrong. The best way to honor Michael wasn't to mourn him alone, it was to love and protect the family he died for, to be the partner to them that he couldn't be anymore. Marcus looked up from his math problems. "Miss Sarah, when I grow up and become a police officer like my daddy, will you be my partner too?" Sarah smiled, remembering Michael's words from years ago. The best partnerships don't end with retirement or even death. They just change form. "Marcus," she said, "I would be honored to be your partner, just like I was your daddy's." Outside, the evening sun set over the city that Michael had served, protected, and loved. Somewhere in that city, his spirit lived. On not just in the memorial plaques and award ceremonies, but in the daily choice to protect and serve others, to build families not just by blood, but by commitment, and to honor the fallen by caring for those they left behind. The secret family was secret no more, and the partnership that had begun 20 years ago between two cops continued in a new form, two women raising a boy who carried his father's badge number in his heart and his father's dream of justice in his future. Where are you watching this video from? Don't forget to leave your city in the comments as well. Remember, every comment is a voice. Every voice is a change. And what about you? Have you ever encountered such an event or situation? Write in the comments. We would like to hear your story.